What's up, Ragin Nation? This is Alex Yu. The video you're watching right now is what I'd like to call The Dark Knight versus the Avengers versus The Dark Knight Rises. And why do I pick these three movies? Because in a lot of people's opinions, these three movies are the top three comic book movies of all time. I know some people might say that Iron Man belongs up there, Spider-Man 2 belongs up there, but let's just stick with the three for now. I think a lot of people have always been asking themselves which is actually better, The Dark Knight or The Dark Knight Rises? Or, considering we're talking about summer 2012, The Avengers or The Dark Knight Rises. And let's just talk about that for a bit. Now, when I'm saying that I want to compare the three together, I'm not talking about box office dollars, or I'm not talking about their overall score from reviewers. But while we're on the subject of that, let's talk about that. The Avengers at the domestic box office, that's North America, is at number 3 at $621 million. The Dark Knight is at number 4 at $533 million. And The Dark Knight Rises is currently at number 8 at $438 million. Now let's look at the worldwide box office dollars. The Avengers is at number 3 at $1.5 billion. The Dark Knight is at number 3 at $1.003 billion. And The Dark Knight Rises is currently at number 10 at $1.042 billion. Now let's look at the tomato meter at Rotten Tomatoes. The Avengers is at 92%. The Dark Knight is at 94%. And The Dark Knight Rises is at 87%. So there are your major measurements of how good these movies are based on Rotten Tomatoes and box office dollars. But this video I'm making right here is based on opinion. I want to know which one you think is better. Now let's just compare The Dark Knight versus The Dark Knight Rises. Which do you think is better? For me, I scored The Dark Knight at 9.5 out of 10 and The Dark Knight Rises at 9.25 out of 10. The Dark Knight had a great story and a really amazing villain. The Dark Knight Rises, I scored 9.25. And while it had a great story and a very memorable villain, I felt that the villain in The Dark Knight, the Joker, is still one step above Bane. And that is why it has that 0.25 missing from it. When I really think about it, they're really similar movies. It's just that one villain is more fascinating than the other. Now, because we're in summer in 2012, let's compare The Avengers versus The Dark Knight Rises. I gave The Avengers 9.75 out of 10, and as I said before, I gave The Dark Knight Rises 9.25 out of 10. If someone had to ask me what is the greatest superhero movie of all time, I'm gonna tell them straight up, it's The Avengers. And a lot of people will tell you that The Dark Knight does not belong in the superhero category because technically he's not a superhero. And I completely agree with that. However, in the world of comics, they're in the same category. The Avengers is a near perfect movie. There are some things that I thought could be better, but they're very minor. And that's why it gets a 9.75 out of 10 from me. The Dark Knight Rises, I've already explained why I gave it a 9.25. So at this point, I gotta ask myself, out of those three movies, which one do I like the most? And you guys might think it's the obvious answer because I gave a 9.75 to The Avengers. Well, I'm gonna tell you right now, Dark Knight Rises is the movie that I pick as the best out of those three. And you're thinking, whoa. Wait a minute, how does that work out? You gave The Avengers 9.75 out of 10, and you also gave The Dark Knight 9.5, and you said that the Joker was better than Bane as a villain. Well, that might all be true, but we are talking about a very minor score. It's a 0.5 and a 0.25 score, and also, The Dark Knight Rises is a very epic movie. It is definitely more action-packed and more exciting than The Dark Knight. What makes The Dark Knight great is a great story and the great villain. However, The Dark Knight Rises as a whole is epic. It has an epic, lasting impression on you. And it also has some action sequences that The Dark Knight has got nothing on The Dark Knight Rises. Let's look at it this way. Would you rather prefer the climactic finale in The Dark Knight Rises where Batman is flying around the city with the bat? Or would you rather watch Batman fighting off some thugs in hand-to-hand combat in an abandoned building with his sonar vision? Which is more exciting to you? Going to the movies is a very visual experience. And while action sequences are really just a tool to help tell the story, at the end of the day, the story is the most important thing. Action, when done really well, is something that keeps us engaged and entertained. And that's why we go to the movies, to be entertained. But when you're comparing The Avengers with The Dark Knight Rises, The Avengers had such an epic, amazing battle sequence. So what's up with giving the preference on The Dark Knight Rises over The Avengers? Well, the best thing about The Avengers was that New York battle sequence that lasted 45 minutes. But before all that, it was just the big build-up towards it. Some people might want to just fast forward to that battle sequence. Well, for me, when I watch The Dark Knight Rises, I want to watch it from beginning to end. For the Avengers, while the movie is great and has great storytelling, the battle sequence really is the best thing about the movie. So that kind of leaves the movie a bit unbalanced. But that doesn't mean it's not a good movie. It's actually a great movie. However, let's put it this way. If I had to choose between The Dark Knight and The Avengers and The Dark Knight Rises, which one do I want to see right now at this very moment? I would pick The Dark Knight Rises. So now I want to ask you guys, in your opinion, which movie do you think is the best? These three movies are obviously three of the greatest comic book movies of all time because not only did they make a lot of money worldwide, but they did really well with the critics. That's a double whammy right there. Now there are some people who just can't decide. They say that, oh, I love The Avengers and The Dark Knight Rises equally. I love them both. I can't choose between the two. And there are those people who can't decide. They'll tell you that you can't compare the two movies. They're totally different movies, and it's like comparing apples and oranges. One's a superhero movie and one's based in reality, so you can't compare the two. Dude, they're just movies. If I wanted to compare The Dark Knight Rises with Dumb and Dumber, I'll compare the two. At the end of the day, they're both movies. So to make it easier for you, let me ask you this. If you had to choose right now at this very moment, which movie would you rather watch right now? The Dark Knight, The Dark Knight Rises, or The Avengers? Which movie do you want to watch first before the other ones? That's your answer right there. If that way of comparing them doesn't work for you, then let's just say that you have all three Blu-rays and you had to get rid of two of them. Then which one would you keep? That's your answer right there. And my answer is The Dark Knight Rises. Which is yours? Let me know in the comment section below. Anyways, that's all I have to say in this video. If you haven't seen the video where I talk about my top 5 summer movies, click the video link at the end of this video. My name is Alex and thanks for watching. I'll see you next time. Peace. Had their moment to shine, and that was the big challenge for a movie of this scale. It's the big challenge of balancing each character and making sure that each one of these characters